शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तः शान्तः शान्तिः। अगजाननपद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्ज सम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாபிவ சம்பிருக்தோ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே ஜகதः பிதரौ வந்தே பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வரौ. ஸ்ரீ பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வராभ्यां நமः. कोहणं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि आर्तान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी द्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽह्यं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने. കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ട തോറു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കുന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the class. All right, so we just do a review of Dasakam 4. I know we were going to do 3 and 4, but that's okay. So let me see. Chintamani, can you do Dasakam 4? I think we did up to stanzas 1 to 9. Chintamani, you there?
Sorry, Renda. Second, 2.
Dasakam 4.
Dasakam 4. Okay.
Okay, stanzas 1 to 9.
Okay. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. कल्यता मम कुर्ष्व तावतीं कल्यते पवतु पासनं यया स्पष्टम् अष्टविधयोः सर्यया पुष्टया सुतव तुष्टिमाप्नुयाम्.
Can you try it with the tune? Sorry, can you try it with the tune we learned, which is Kalyata mama kurushvatavatim Kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya.
कल्यतां मम कुरुष्व तावतीं कल्यते पवतु पासनं यया स्पष्टम् अष्टविधयोः सर्यया पुष्टया सुतव तुष्टिमाप्नुयाम्. ब्रह्मचर्य यमैः आप्लवादीनियमैश्च भाविताः कुर्महे त्रिडममि सुगासनं पङ्कजात्यमपि वा भवत्पराः तारामन्त्रनु सिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयदा कृत्या स्महे पवतु पासनोन्मुखाः.
So second line.
Second.
Vishayadatapakhrityasmahe.
विषयाददावकृत्या यास्महे. विषयाददावकृत्या स्महे पवतु वासनोन्मुखाः. अष्पुडे वपुषिते प्रयत्नदो तारयेम दिशानां मुहुर्मुहुः देन भक्तिरसम् उत्वहेम पवदङ्कृसिन्तहाः. Right or wrong?
That's like just before the comma, second line.
Right.
Antaradratam.
Hello?
Are you able to? I mean, using connection. Sorry, go ahead. Keep going. Chintamani, keep going. Yeah.
The second line for the fourth.
Keep going. I'll tell it later. Just keep going.
Dena bhaktirasam antaratra.
Correct. Antaratratam.
Antarartratam utvahe antarartratam utpahema pavadankrisintahaha Vishpuda vayavavede sundaram dvatvabush surasisi dvatvabusu sira sila navasat ashramam manasi sintayamahe dhyana yoga niradat dvattachrayaha yayatam sagala murti mitrushim उन्मिषन् मधुरदा कृतात्मनां सान्त्रमोदरसरूपमात्रं ब्रह्मरूपमयी देववासदे तत्समास्वादनरूपिणीं स्थितिं त्वत्समाधिमयी विश्वनायक त्वत्समाधिमयि विश्वनायक आश्रिता पुनरद परिच्युतौ आरभेमहि सतारणादिकम् इत्मदप्यसन निर्भरोल्लसत् त्वत्परात्मसुख कल्पिदोत्सवाः मुक्तभक्तकुलमौलितां कथः संचरेम सुगनारदातिवत्. Dvat samadhi vijaye tuya punaha mankshu mokshara siga kramena va yoga vach yamanilam sadacharayaihi unnayatyaja shushumnayasanaihi.
I think that's where we stop. Yeah.
Is it? You
Yeah.
want me to go?
No, that's where we stopped last time. So we'll continue with the class. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. All right. So we'll continue with stanza 10. So let me know if the connection is flaky.
you.
Sorry. So let me know if the connection is flaky. I'm dialing from India.
Continue.
So
Continue.
no, Chintaman, you are done. Okay. So I don't know if you could hear me. I think can you?
Rajesh, there is a latency.
Yeah, I think there is some latency. I think for today's class, I would recommend you all go off video because I'm calling from India and my internet connection is a little flaky. Okay, thanks. Okay. All right. So for today's class, we'll start with Abhirami, you can be a student, and Shreya, you can be a student. Okay. So we'll continue from stanza 10. लिङ्गदेहमपि सन्त्यजह्नतो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रहः ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकीतुमूर्धतः सार्धमेव करणैर्निरीयते. Actually, Abhirami, நீங்க மட்டும், can you come on video? That way I know if my connection is gone or not. Otherwise, I won't be able to tell. Okay, thanks. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think we had a break, so I'll just kind of catch up with where we left, right? So we were talking about Ashtanga Yogam, and in the Ashtanga Yogam, we talked through the various levels of the Ashtanga Yoga, which finally then came up with the final state of Samadhi. And in that, we talked about how once you reach that state of Samadhi, you can actually take your prana vayu through the various nadis. Specifically, if you're able to control it, you can take it through the Sushumna Nadi, right? Instead of the other 100 nadis which goes, and then the middle one through the Sushumna Nadi, you can take the prana vayu. So that's where we ended with stanza 9. So now, after here, stanzas 10 and 11 and so on, right? It actually talks through a few things. Now, the body we are having, the soul that is there, has to always have a carrier, has to always have something in which it can be there, right? When we are alive, we have what is called as a sthula shariram, which is called as a gross body. So it has all of the things that we actually have today, which you are seeing as a person. When the soul is now ready to exit, which is what is coming, because it's in a state of samadhi, right? When you are about to exit it, it still needs to have a carrier body. That carrier body is called as a Sukshma Shariram. It's called a subtle body. It still has a body. Now, the Sukshma Shariram actually has multiple layers to it, right? The Sukshma Shariram, the mind, and we're going to see some of these layers which are going to come a little later, but it is still going to have an intellect, which is the ability to tell and decipher. It is still going to have the intellect. It is still going to have the manas. It is still going to have the mind. It is going to still have a feeling of individuality, which is called as ahankaram, the ability to tell that I am me, right? My unique soul. And then it's all the senses that we have, which is the Jnanendriyangal and the Karmendriyangal, which we're going to see later in the 5th Dasakam. It is still going to exist, but it is going to exist in a subtle form. So, for example, right now, for me to see, I need my eyes. The eyes are part of my body. So the eyes are part of the Sthula Shariram. So when the soul is taking the Sukshma Shariram, it still will be able to see things, but it will not require a physical eyes like how I have today, because this is part of the Sthula Shariram, right? So it still carries the Sukshma Shariram. You don't have to worry too much about the details of that. I'm only telling that because at this point, when it leaves, all the karma that you have created, all the vasanas, which is your likes, your dislikes, your habits, your preferences, all carry with you, right? From one birth to another birth. So the soul is carrying all of those things around. That's why you have preferences for something and dispreferences for something, right? Now, anyway, once that yogi is able to get that pranavayu through the Sushumna Nadi, he has two options. There are two types of muktis he can actually take. One is if the yogi says that I have complete God realization and only thing I want is I desire the Supreme Lord. At the time of exiting of the soul, which is very hard. But if the person is a realized person in devotion, he's able to bring that prana vayu through, then it exits through the top of his crown, through the Brahmarandra or the Sahasrara Chakra. So when it exits through that point, then that person directly attains liberation. So he's not that he or she, I'm just saying he for a very loose gender term, right? So, that person attains liberation completely and doesn't take birth again. Second, if that person is not fully realized, but still is in a state of samadhi, and then he wants to attain all the siddhis which this person attains and wants to have a gradual liberation, then it actually goes through the middle of the eyes, which is the Agneya chakra. So the soul can eventually, this is only for people who are realized. If you or me are not realized, we're just going to do die a normal death. There are 7 other holes in our body through which the soul can actually exit, which means you are not attaining liberation, you are not going through any of these mukti. So this is specifically for somebody who's attaining that state of samadhi and going. Now, in this stanza, when it specifically says the person is actually going through the Sahasrara chakra, so at this time the soul exits and then it goes through the top and then it attains liberation. So he's saying that's one way you can get liberated, which we are going to see later on. We're going to talk about specific sages, right? We're going to talk about Prithu and a few other people who are actually going to practice this and show us how they actually did it. This is a little bit of a theory. We're going to see the practice much later. So, linga dehamapi santya jannato, liyate tvai pare niragraha urdhva loka kutuki tu murdhataha, sardhameva karanair niriyate. If you have karanaihi, then put a ir to join. Karanair niriyate. Lingadehamapi santyajannatho liyate tvai pare niragraha urdhvaloka kutukitu murdhataha sadhameva karanair niriyate.
लिङ्गदेहमपि संत्यजन्नतो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रहः ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकी मूर्धतः सार्धमेव करुणैर्निरीयते.
Last time, karanair
सार्धमेव करनैर्निरीयते.
Yeah, 2 times, Abhinami. 2 times.
लिङ्गदेहमपि संत्यजन्नतो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रहः ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकीतु मूर्धतः सार्धमेव करुणैर्निरीयते.
You're saying karunair and the word, it is karanair niriyate.
Yeah, karanair, correct. Karanairniriyate. Okay.
लिङ्गदेहम् अपि सन्त्यजन्नतो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रहः ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकीतुमूर्धतः साधमेव करणैर्निरीयते. लिङ्गदेहमपि सन्त्यजन्नतो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रहः ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकीतुमूर्धतः सार्धमेव करणैर्निरीयते.
Stanza 11. Agnivasaravalakshapakshakaiः उत्तरायणजुषा च दैवतैः प्रापितो रविपदं भवत्परो मोदवान् ध्रुवपदान्तमीयते. So we saw about the Videha Mukti. I said there are 2 types of Mukti. The Videha Mukti is where it goes through the Sahasrara Chakra and attains instant liberation, no more births or anything. The second is called as a Krama Mukti, where it goes now between the 2 eyes through the eyebrows, which is the Agneya Chakra. So this is the person is still advanced in a yogic state to be in a state of Samadhi, but is not fully realized to attain the union with the God, right? That is the second one level, little bit, think of it as not to compare, but it's a little bit of a level lower, right? So this soul still passes through various other advanced stages. So for us, if we don't attain the state of liberation, we go in a completely different path. If you think of the Bhishma, right? Bhishma he attained that siddhi, right? But he had the icham, he could exit his soul whenever he wants because he was powerful in this Ashtanga yoga. So he waited because he was waiting for the Uttarayana Kalam. You all know that story. Now, in this case, again, what it says is, even if the soul which is getting liberated is exiting at a different time, it goes and it passes till the Uttarayana time happens before it proceeds with this journey. Now, in that journey, when it is actually going, it goes through what is called as the Archiradi Margam. Archiradi Margam means the path of light, because that essentially means you are actually much more advanced stage, right? And then this soul, which carries, like I said, all the Sukshma Shariram, has all the Ashta Siddhi. So, Hanuman has the Ashta Siddhi. So, similarly, this soul has the Ashta Siddhi, which means it's going to go through all the higher worlds. We'll see what the higher worlds are much later. But in this case, specifically, it says it first goes through the Archiradi Margam, which is the path of light. It then goes into what is called as the Vaishwanara realm of Vaishwanara, which is the realm of Agni, where it actually gets purified. And from that, it goes through higher regions. It keeps going. Then it finally lands up in Dhruva Mandala or Dhruva Loka. Up to this, then it goes further. So it is actually going to, there are 14 worlds we are going to see in Dasakam 6. So I'm not going to talk about it right now. So, but this is assuming the soul is sitting in Earth right now. So it is going through those higher planes, and then finally reaches Dhruva Mandala. This is going through the Krama Mukti, where it is not fully liberated, but it is still, advanced enough to through the Samadhi state. Agni Basara Balarksha Pakshagaihi. So you have to add a visarga there. I don't know if you have a r or something there. If you have it, remove it, put a visarga. Pakshagaihi, comma. Uttarayana Jushacha Daivataihi. Prapito Ravi Padam Bhavat Paro, comma. Modavan Dhruva Padantam Iyate. We will see what this Dhruva Pada is. What is this Dhruva Loka? We will find out more about it in Dashakam 17. Okay. Agniva Saravalaksha Pakshakaihi Uttarayana Jushacha Daivataihi Prapito Ravipadam Bhavat Paro Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate.
अग्निवासरवलक्षपक्षकैः उत्तरायणजुषा च दैवतैः प्रापितो रविपदं भवत्प्रभो प्रापितो रविपदं भवत्परो मोदवान् ध्रुवपदान्तमीयते अग्निवासरवलक्षपक्षकैः उत्तरायणजुषा च दैवतैः प्रापितो रविपदं भवत्परो मोदवान् ध्रुवपदान्तमीयते.
अग्निवासरवलक्षपक्षगैः उत्तरायणजुषा च दैवतैः प्रापितो रविपदं भवत्परो मोदवान् ध्रुवपदान्तमीयते अग्निवासरवलक्षपक्षगैः उत्तरायणजुषा च दैवतैः प्रापितो रविपदं भवत्परो मोदवान् ध्रुवपदान्तमीयते.
Sansatva. Astito tamaharaalaye yada sheshabhaktradhanushmanardhyate iyate bhavadupashrayastadha vedasah padamatah puraivava. So from Dhruva Mandalam, it keeps going. It goes to what is called as Maharloka. And then in Maharloka, so that's where, all those other sages that we know, like Brigu and everybody is existing. So from Maharloka, so each of these loka, and we'll see more about this later on, like I said, in the advanced Dashakams. So in these loka, like Maharloka and other places, the average lifespan is 1 day of Brahma, which is 4.32 billion human years. So the soul just goes through these various states, right? And in all of these things, from Maharloka, it goes to Janaloka, Tapaloka, and all of those things. It can go anywhere it wants. It has a flexibility, right? That's the thing with the Krama Mukti is it can traverse between any of these regions. And finally it reaches Brahmaloka and it just sits there. It doesn't get liberated. So that is the difference between the Videha Mukti and Kama Mukti is in Videha Mukti you're fully liberated. So which means you never come back into this material universe. In this, it is still flowing between any of these worlds. And in each of these worlds, there are different things that happen, and we don't have to worry about what happens there. But the soul still can advance itself more and more spiritually till it becomes a point where it's ready to get liberated. Because ready to get liberated is a very big, difficult task or a very difficult thought process, right? You should not want anything at the time of your death, which is very, very hard. So anyway, so this one, it goes through all of these things and it finally comes and resides in Brahmaloka. It can also go to the other lokas, but it is going to stay there. It's going to stay there and we'll see how it can exit out of it later. Astitota Maharalaye yada, comma, Shesha Vaktra Dahanoshmanardhyate. That's one word. Dahanoshmanardhyate. Iyate Bhavadupashrayas tada, comma, Vedasaha, put a F to join. Padamataha, again put another F to join. Padamata Uraivava. Astito tamaharaalaye yada sheshavaktradahanushmanardhyate iyate bhavadupashrayastada vedasah padamatah puraivava.
Astidotha okay. Astidotha maharalaye yada Seshavatra dahanoshmanardhyate iyate bhavatu pashrayastada vedasaf padamadah puraivava astitodha Maharalaye yada Seshavaktradahanushmanardhyate iyate bhavatu pashrayastada vedasaf padamadah puraivava.
Astito Maharalaye yada Sheshavaktradahanushmanartyate Iyate Bhavadu Pashrayastada Vedasaf Padamatav Purevava Astito Maharalaye yada Sheshavaktradahanushmanartyate Iyate Bhavadu Pashrayastada Vedasaf Padamatav Purevava.
Chapter 13. Tatrava davapade tavabasanhe prakrita pralayayeti muktatam swechhaya khalu pura vimuchyate samvibidya jagadanda mojasa. Now, like some of these things that we're going to see in Dasakam 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to all of that, to some extent, you have to think of them as theoretical concepts that you have to learn, right? Before the later on, when things come and we talk about people who actually end up going through some of these things, then we will just tell at a very high level, this person went through this process of samadhi. He followed Ashtanga yoga and got liberated, right? So then you'll wonder, what is Ashtanga yoga? So this is all the theoretical things that are coming up front so that you don't ask the questions later about it. So here, this soul in its Sukshma Shariram is now sitting in this Brahma Loka or any of these other lokas. So to some extent, you think of it as when you're transiting over, right? You can now have an in-between stop in Europe. So that is how it is. It is going to sit there. It is going to sit there till Prakrita Pralaya. So this Prakrita Pralaya and all of those things are going to come later. But that is really at the end of the life of Brahma, which is very, very long. We will discuss that in detail in Dasakam 8. So till that point, the soul has to just sit, or it has to sit in various lokas. It is not going to get liberated unless it reaches that level of spiritual realization, at which point it can pierce through the Jagat Andam Ojasa. So it's called a Jagadandam, which is called as Brahmandam, which I will talk in detail in Dasakam 7. So it can pierce through all of that because this final Vaikuntham or the final place of liberation is beyond all of these things. So it has to pierce through the entire material universe and exit itself, right? So it can do that at will when it reaches that level of realization. So till that point, it is going to sit in the Brahma Loka or in any of the other lokas, but it has an option to exit. So that's why it says Tatrava Tava Padetava Vasanna. It just sits there, right? And then it is there, it just constantly continues to elevate itself in consciousness. Tatra Va Tava Padetava Vasanna, Prakrita Pralaya Eti Muktatham Swechaya. So this is what Bhishma says. Bhishma had the Swechamriti, Swa Ichamriti. So he, according to its will, it has, when it is ready, right? It can pick the time when it is ready. So Swechaya Kalu Pura Vimuchyate. Some books have Pura Pi. So you just change it to V if you have Va. So Pura Vimuchyate, comma. Samvibhidya Jagadandam Ojasa. If you want to break it, it's Jagat Andam Ojasa. 3 different words there. Tatrava Tava Padethava Vasanhe Prakrita Pralaya Eti Muktatam Swechaya Kalupura Vimuchyate Samvibhidya Jagadandam Ojasa.
तत्र वा तव पते तवा वसन् प्राकृतप्रलयेति मुक्तताम् स्वच्छया खलु पुरा विमुच्यते संविभित्य जगदण्डमोजसा तत्र वा तव
Second line, first word, Swechaya.
स्वेच्छया okay. तत्र वा तव पदे तवा वसन् प्राकृतप्रलयेति मुक्तताम् स्वच्छया खलु पुरा विमुच्यते संविभित्य जगदण्डमोजसा.
Again, on the word, you are saying Swachaya, it is Swechaya.
Oh, correct. Swechaya kalu pura vimuchyate samvibhitya jagadandamojasa swechaya. Okay, thank you.
Tatra va tava padeta vavasan prakrita pralayeti muktatam swechaya kalupura vimuchyate samvibhitya jagadandamojasa. Tatra va tava padeta vavasan prakrita pralayeti muktatam swechaya kalupura vimuchyate samvibhitya jagadandamojasa.
Stanza 14. Tasya chakshiti payo maho niladyo mahat prakriti saptaka vritihi tattadatmakataya vishan sukhi yati te padamanabratam vibho. So this Brahmandam, which we keep referring, which I said we're going to cover later in the Chakam 7, has got 7 layers to it. So you can, because like we said, even the soul which is in the Sukshma Shariram form, it can take any Stula Shariram form according to its choice, according to its karma. It can pick any Sukshma Shariram. It will automatically pick. You can pick a human body, or it can pick a demigod body, or it can pick an insect's body, right? But the rest of the core Sukshma Shariram, that remains constant. It's just the Stulam, that's outside thing that changes. So it can pick anything it wants. So at some point, it would be in some demigod or some status, right? It will have some form. At that point, when it decides to discard itself and go through the Brahmandam has got 7 layers, not physical walls, but think of it as some virtual walls, right? Think of it that way. So it has to go, which we'll see in 7 anyways. So it says, all it says is when it decides to exit itself through the Brahmandam, think of it as shedding all of those layers one at a time. So it goes away from shedding. So if you have 7 layers of clothing on you, you then remove each of that layer, finally you come, right? So the you in this case is the Paramatma, which is already part of the Jiva, which is already part of the soul, right? So it has 7 layers of surroundings on top of it. So when it is exiting the Brahmandam, each of the layer of Brahmandam is absorbing one of the layer of the Stula, the Sukshma Shariram. And finally, nothing will be left. It only has the Paramatma left in it, in which case it just merges into the Paramatma. It doesn't have an identity of a Jivatma. That's what it's telling. It goes through the 7 layers where it sheds each of the layers, and finally it then goes and merges into the Paramatma, at which point there is no return. Tasya cha kshiti payo maho nila. It's one word, payo maho nila. Then put a plus there, so that we're going to say that line together. Payo maho nila dyo mahat prakriti sapta kavritihi. That's why the 7 are coming. Sapta kavritihi. So that line is together. Tatta datma kathaya vishan sukhi, comma, yati te padamanavritam vibho. Tasya cha kshitipayo maho niladyo mahat prakriti saptaka vritihi tattadatmakataya vishan sukhi yati te padamanavritam vibho.
Tasya cha kshiti payo maho niladye dyo mahat prakriti sapta kavriti. Okay. Tasya cha kshiti payo maho niladyo mahat prakriti sapta kavritihi tattadatma kataya. Okay. Tattadatmakadaya vishan sukhi yati te padamanavritam vibho tasya cha kshitipayo maho niladyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi tattadatmakadaya tattadatmakataya vishan sukhi yati te padamanavritam vibho.
Tasya cha kshitipayo maho niladyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi tattadatmakataya vishan sukhi yatti te padamanavritam vibho.
And the second line after the comma, yati te.
Where is it? Oh,
After
yati
sukhi.
te.
Yeah.
Yati te padamanavritam vibho. Tasya cha kshitipayo maho niladyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi tattadatmakataya vishan sukhi yatti te padamanavritam vibho.
Yati te.
Yati te padamanavritam vibho.
Stanza 15. Archira adigatimi trishim prajante vichutim na bhajate jagatpate sachidatmaka bhavad gunodayan ucharantam anilesha pahimam. Just wraps up saying this way, a devotee of yours who goes through this process and goes through the Archiradi Margam, the path of light, does not fall back into this material world anymore, does not take a human birth or any of this birth anymore, because that goes through the path of liberation. So you, O Guruvarappa, please bless me, to get more devotion with you, because I'm constantly singing your glory. So bless me also to eventually get onto that path. Archiradi gatim, just breaking at the im, gatim, idrishim brajan, comma, vichutim na bhajate jagatpate Sachidatmaka bhavat guno dayan, comma, ucharantam, breaking at that ma, ucharantam anilesha pahima. Archira digatim idrishim brajanne vichutim na bhajate jagatpate sachidatmaka bhavat guno dayan ucharantam anilesha pahimam.
Archiradigatimeedrishim vrajanne vichutim na bhajate jagatpate sachidatmaka bhavad gunodaya उच्चरन्तमनिलेश पाहि माम् अर्चिरादिगति मीदृशीं व्रजन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पते सच्चिदात्मक भवद्गुणोदया उच्चरन्तमनिलेश पाहि माम्
अर्चिरतिगतिमेतृषीं रचन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पथे सच्चिदात्मकभवद्गुणोदयान् उच्चरन्तमनिलेश पाहि माम् अर्चरादिगतिमेतृषीं व्रजन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पते सच्चिदात्मकभवद्गुणोदयन् यान् उच्चरन्तमनिलेश पाहि माम्.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. That completes the fourth Dashakam. Continue with the fifth one. So the fifth one, again, like I said, the first 7-8 Dashakams are going to be a lot of theory. You know, it might look confusing, it might sound confusing, or you may not understand everything. It might sound boring also in most times, but you only have to take the gist of it, right? So the gist of the fourth Dashakam was what? You need to get into a state of Ashtanga Yoga where you have to practice it to be physically ready, mentally ready to get detached yourself from the senses and have control. Because you remember we spoke about how you have to control your mind and all of those things, right? So all of those things are required, because until and unless you get to that point, you will not get liberated, right? You'll keep taking birth. If that's what you want, then there's no problem at all, right? There's no issues at all. But if you want to get liberated, then that's something you need to practice, right? So that is what that is there. That is the gist of it. You don't worry about what's going to happen to the soul later. That will all follow the right process. You just have to do what you can right now. Now, the fifth Dashakam is talking about the evolution of the cosmos. And it is talking really about the first incarnation of Bhagavan. Like I said in one of the earlier things, the first incarnation is not Matsya Avataram, Kurma Avataram, and all of that. That is just the way it is represented in the modern thing. We're going to talk about the first Avataram, and which is going to be the Virat Purusha Utpatti Prakara Varna. We'll see who is the Virat Purusha who is coming, which is the first incarnation of Bhagavan in there. Stanza 1. So this is going to be similar to the first and the second Dashakam. So it's going to be the 4-liner tune, and it's going to be those 4 lines there. Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavat prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikrutau tvayagatayam layam no mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut nahno naratre sthitihi tatraikastvamashishyatah kila Parananda Prakashatmana. So it talks about so in the Hindu thing, everything is a cycle. So there is no absolute beginning. It's just happening. It's just been happening several times, and it's just going to continue happening. So to talk about the beginning, they always talk about the end of the previous one, because it's always happening. So there's no definition of what an absolute beginning is. So it talks about at the end of the previous life of a Brahma, which is 100 years, which we'll talk about the life of Brahma and all later, but it's called Prakrita Pralaya. At the end of the Prakrita Pralaya, whatever was Vyaktam. Vyaktam means something you can see physically. I can see Earth physically. I can see Mars physically. I can see Sun physically. So anything I can see physically that is there. And Avyaktam, anything I cannot see physically that is still existing in the universe, everything that is there, Vyaktam and Avyaktam, which is there, ceases to exist. It doesn't exist at all. But when it says it doesn't exist at all, what it means is it is all in you in a sukshma form, right? So you cannot see that, but it is there. And I'll give you some examples as we go through this. So it says that all the beings which are there, all the living beings, all the creatures which are there, all of that is gone. It's no longer there. It is just dissolved. At the time it says na mrityu. There is no birth happening. So no new beings are getting created. There's no death happening. Nobody is dying at that point. There is no liberation, because there's absolutely nothingness that is existing. There is no day, there is no night, there is no concept of any of those things, because no planets, none of those exist, right? Everything is in a pure equilibrium. There's only one thing. There is just you, oh Bhagavan, just that, right? And there's no definition of that. Like we say the Brahman, which we are saying, just that is in existence, and there is absolutely nothing else that is actually there. And so that is the first, that's how it starts, saying it is the end, nothing is there, everything is gone, just you are there. And from there, the definition of the cosmos creation starts, right? According to the Hindu philosophy. So, Vyakta Vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavat, comma, prakrita prakshaye, comma, mayayam guna samya ruddha vikritau, comma, tvayagatayam layam. Vyakta Vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavat prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikritau tvayagatayam layam.
ஆக்சுவலா அந்த டியூன் கரெக்டா இப்போ அந்த 4th பண்ணதுக்கு அப்புறம் இந்த டியூன் ஞாபகம் வர மாட்டேங்குது.
Vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavat.
Okay. Vyakta Vyaktamidam na kinchita bhavat prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikridau त्वय्यागतायां लयं व्यक्ता व्यक्तमिदं न किञ्चित् अभवत् प्राक्प्राकृतप्रक्षये मायायां गुणसाम्यरुद्धविकृतौ त्वय्यागतायां लयम्.
व्यक्ता व्यक्तमिदं न किञ्चिदभवत् प्राक् प्रकृतप्रक्षये मायायां गुणसंयरुद्धविकृतौ त्वया
This is a double Y Shreya there. Tvayagatayam layam.
त्वय्यागातायां लयं गतायां लयं व्यक्ता व्यक्तमिदं न किञ्चिदभवत् प्राक् प्रकृतप्रक्षये मायायां गुणसाम्य रुद्धविकृतौ
Tvaya. Oops.
I think he's
Sorry, I think my connection got lost. I'm back. Yeah. No mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut. Put a comma there. Nahnona rat. If you have ratrehe, if you have visarga there, just put a is to join. Nahnona ratres stitihi, comma. Tatraikastvam. I'm just breaking at that ma. If you want to put the im there. Tatraikastvam ashishyata then. Okay, or you can say it together as Tatraikastvam ashishyata as well. If you have ashishyataha, put the ih to join, h to join. So Tatraikastvam ashishyatah kila, comma. Parananda prakashatmana. So just you are shining. Just there's only light. There's only one light that is there, which is you in supreme consciousness, which is shining there, and there's absolutely nothing else. No mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut nahno naratre stitihi tatraikastvamashishyatah kila parananda prakashatmana.
No mrityushya tadam ritam cha samabhut. Okay, no. No mrityuscha tadamrita. No mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut. Nahno naratre stitihi tatraikastvam. Okay, tatraikastvamashishyata khilaf parananda parak prakashatmana. Okay, let me do it one more time. No mrityushata. Yeah. No mrityushcha tadamritam cha samabhut. Nahno naratre stitihi tatraikastvam ashishyatah kila parananda parakshatmana. No mrityushcha tadamritam cha samabhut. Nahno naratre stitihi tatraikastvamashishyatah kila parananda parakshatmana.
In the fourth line, after the word kila, there is a comma. Okay. Ashishyata kila, comma. Parananda prakashatmana. The last word is prakashatmana. Okay. Yeah.
Prakashatmana. Okay, good.
Go ahead, Shreya.
No mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut. Nahno naratre stitihi tatraikastvamashishyata kila parananda prakashatmana.
Shreya,
No
and the fourth
mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut.
Keep going.
What?
No, and the fourth line after the word kila, there is a comma there in the fourth line.
Okay. So what do you call it? Tatraikastvamashishyata kila parananda prakashatmana.
Okay. So we just
No mrityuscha tadamritam.
No mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut. Nahno
naratre stitihi
tatraikastvamashishyata
kila parananda. Tatraikastvamashishyata kila parananda prakashatmana.
Okay. We'll just switch halfway. Sorry, I think there is a lag that is between my voice and your voice, so that's okay. We'll switch. Harish, you can be a student, and Indraji, you can be a student. Okay, stanza 2. You can go off video, Abhiram, if you want. Harish, maybe you can come on video if you're able to. Yeah. Stanza 2. Kalah karma gunascha jiva nivahaha vishwam cha karyam vibho chillilārati me yushittvaitada nirlīna tāmāyayuhu tesham naiva vadantya sattvamai bhoho shakyatmana tishthataam no chet kim gagana prasuna sadrisham bhuyo bhavet sambhavah. So we came to that point where there is absolutely nothing, he said, right? So in that point, it says, when there is never a state where there is absolutely nothing. It's all it says is, in reality, what is actually happening is, it is all existing just in a form that we don't understand, because all of that is merged into you. So that's why even in this, the core philosophy says that there's nothing like something is never there. It is always there. You just cannot see it in the form that we actually see today, because it says something cannot come out of nothing, right? There's always has to be something. And the two examples which are given, very simple examples for us to understand is, if you see a peacock, for those of you who've seen it, when the rain comes, the peacock spreads its feathers. All of a sudden, you see this huge spread of feathers that a peacock has. Before that, it spread it. Where were the feathers? The feathers were still there. You just could not see the big spread, right? So similarly, it says the manifestation of the universe happens. It was always there. It was not in a way that we can understand. The second very simple example, for those of you who are into gardening, you plant a seed, right? You plant a seed and you go tell a child that I'm planting a seed. The seed is very small. Then you say, from this, an apple tree is going to come, which is going to give rise to hundreds of apples. It'll be impossible for anybody to believe that, right? Because how is that possible? It's a small seed, right? But everything that is required for an apple tree to come is there in the seed. It's a combination of the minerals which are going to get provided by the ground, the sunlight that's going to come, and the water that is needed, which is exactly how the universe creation at a very high level is going to happen. It was always there. It is there in a seed form, in a causal form, which is what we call as a sukshma form, which is always there in Bhagavan. When the time comes, he's going to start sprinkling those seeds around in a very layman terms, right? But the seeds were always there. So that's what this is telling. There's never like it was not there at all. It was always there. It is just there in you, absorbed in you, in a form that nobody can see, nobody can understand. And then when the time comes, you are going to release those things. So kalaha, put ih, kalah, karma, gunascha, jiva, nivahaha, comma. If you don't have a visarga, add a visarga there. Nivahaha, comma. Vishwam cha karyam vibho, comma. Chilli laratim eyushi. Cannot break that word too much. Chilli larati meyushi. Tvai tada, comma. Nirlinatam, breaking at that ma. Nirlinatam ayayuhu. This Dasakam will be a little tough only, so you can take your time. Kalah karma gunascha jiva nivahaha vishwam cha karyam vibho chilli larati me yushitvai tada nirlinatamaya
कालकर्मगुणाश्च जीवनिवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीलारतिमेयुषी त्वयि तदा निर्लीनतामाययुः कालकर्मगुणाश्च जीवनिवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीलारतिमेयुषी त्वयि तदा निर्लीनतामाययुः
कालः कर्मगुणाश्च जीवनिववाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चित्लीलारतिमेयुषी त्वयि तथा निर्लीनतामाययु कालः कर्मगुणाश्च जीवनिवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चित्लीलारतिमेयुषी त्वयि तथा Nirlinatamayayu.
That last word, ayayuhu, visarga is there.
Ayayuhu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tesham naiva vadantya sattvamai bhoho, comma, shaktyatmana tishthatam, comma, no chet kim gagana prasuna sadrisham, comma, bhuyo bhavet sambhavaha. Tesham naiva vadantya sattvamai bhoho shakyatmana tishthatam no chet kim gagana prasuna sadrisham bhuyo bhavet sambhavaha.
तेषां नैव वदन्त्यसत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना निस्तिष्ठताम् नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशाम् भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः तेषां नैव वदन्त्यसत्त्वमयि भोः तेषां नैव वदन्त्यसत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठताम् नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशाम् भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः
तेषां नैव वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठताम् नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशाम् भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः तेषाज्ञैव वदन्त्यसत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठताम् नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशाम् भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः.
Stanza 3. एवं च द्विपरार्धकालविगता वीक्षांसि सृक्षात्मिकां बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयं मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदधुः तस्याः सहायक्रियाम्. This word Dviparardha is coming. So we're going to, you must have heard this in your Sankalpam. Dvitiya Pararthe. That is the second Parardha. The Dviparardha means two Parardhas. That's going to come, detailed explanation is going to come in Dasakam 7 and 8. So I'm not going to spend time on it. But the Brahma's life of 100 years is divided into two halves. So it says when the two halves of Brahma's life is over, Dviparardha is over, at that time is where nothing ceases to exist, which is what we saw before. When that is over, then automatically when the next cycle starts, then the process of creation, like we said, everything is absorbed in you, right? Now that absorbed thing is going to come out. How does that thing come out? Anything we do, we always have a desire or a motive to do. When I'm teaching today, I have a motive. I have a desire to teach you all. Without that, I will not be doing it, right? We all have desires and motives in everything we do. But it says, for the creation to happen, Bhagavan does not have any motive or desire, because any motive or desire creates a karma. And Bhagavan cannot have any karma. So how does that happen is, it happens, the process called as ikshana, which is the process, it just happens. So for example, you bring a magnet, you bring a whole bunch of nails next to the magnet. The magnet does not have an intent to necessarily absorb it. It just happens because that is the process by which it actually happens. It automatically attracts the nails, right? Similarly, when the appropriate time comes, absorption happens into Bhagavan, and when the appropriate time comes, whatever is absorbed is going to come out. So that is the process it is saying. In the process of ikshana, when the time happens, you then, the process begins with you, which everything which is absorbed in you is now begin to come out. So which is very similar to the spider. When you see a spider spinning a web, the spider can spin an entire web out of its own body. You will wonder where did all the web come from. And when the spider wants, it can absorb all the web into it itself, right? That is a comparison which is always given to how creation happens is, it comes in and out of the spider. Similarly, the creation, everything was absorbed in you, everything is going to start coming out right now. Evam cha dviparardha kala vigata bhiksham si srikshatmikam. So that line is continuous, comma at the very end. Bibrane tvayi, comma, chukshube tribhuvani bhavaya maya swayam. So it talks about a very fundamental concept here of tribhuvani. So it says the maya of you. So there's no separation between Bhagavan and Maya. It is all connected. It is just that anything which is material in nature is going to be coming from this material energy of this Tribhuvani or the Maya, which is the companion of the Lord. So we'll see what that is a little later. So along with that Maya, the process of creation is going to start. Evam cha dviparardha kala vigata bhikshamsi srikshatmikam bibhrane tvayi chukshubhe tribhuvani bhavaya maya swayam.
एवं च द्विपरार्धकालविगता वीक्षांसि सृक्षात्मिकां बिभ्राणे त्वयि चक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयं.
Harish, second line. After the word twayi, there is a comma, and then the word after that is chukshube.
बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयं. एवं च द्विपरार्धकालविगता वीक्षांसि सृक्षात्मिकां बिभ्राणे त्वयि चक्षुभे चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयम्
एवं च द्विपरार्थकालविगताम् ईक्षांसि सृषात्मिकाम् बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयम् एवं च परार्थकालविगताम् ईक्षांसि सृषात्मिकाम् बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयम्
Mayatah, put a hitched joint. Mayatah khalu, comma, kala shakti rakhila drishtam swabhavopi cha, comma, pradur bhuya gunan vikasya vidadhuhu. So add a visarga and comma there if you don't have a visarga. Vidadhuhu, comma, tasyas sahaya kriyam. Mayatah khalu kala shaktirakila drishtam swabhavopi cha pradurbhuya gunan vikasya vidaduhu tasyas sahaya kriyam.
मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृश्यं स्वभावोऽपि च Is it vopi cha vyopi cha?
Swabhavopi cha.
दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदुः
Vidaduhu.
विदधुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम् मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम्
And the word again, vidaduhu.
प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदधुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम्
मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदधुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम्
See that third line, Mayatah khalu, and then there is a pause there, there's a comma there.
मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदधुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम्
And so forth. Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha sakshiti gito bhavan bedhaistam pratibimbhato vivishivan jivopi naiva paraha kaladi pratiboditata bhavata sanchodita cha swayam maya sakhalu buddhi tattvamasujat yosau mahanuchyate. Now, it's going to get a little bit into a very technical and complicated territory, but eventually I will bring it along. So you just have to follow with me along the process. It will eventually all connect. Okay. And some of these things, the reason it is important, right? Why some of this thing is important is when we come later to Krishna Avataram and Krishna is standing and lifting the Govardhana mountain in his pinky finger for 7 days. You should not ask the question, how is it possible for Krishna to do it? Because we're going to see how the entire world is going to come from that Bhagavan, right? So for that Bhagavan to, if you understand that concept of it, then later on you won't question how Bhagavan can lift a mountain with his pinky finger. That question will not come. And same thing, Varaha Avataram, how he can move the entire earth, that question will not come. So here, the first step that is actually coming, which is getting defined here is, there is something called as the Brahman who we call, it also has another name for it, which is like a Purusha. Now, there's a second one, which is called as the Prakriti, which is a material energy. So, this always things work in combination, right? Like, there's a Purusha, there's a material energy, which is also sometimes referred to as the yoga, the Maya, which is helping the Bhagavan in it. This Prakriti is called as a Moola Prakriti. What that means is things can come out of it, but nothing can create it. So it is the root of the material energy. Now, this material energy, when we say, right, it has two characteristics to it. So one of that it says is whatever we said is sitting inside of Bhagavan, right? It is all sitting inside of this Prakriti box. So very, in a physical way, you think of this something called as a Prakriti, which is some energy which is there, right? Think of it that way. That energy has things which is in an unmanifested form. So what that means is it is very similar to the sprouting example. It is sitting like a seed in there. It has the potential to become a tree, but it doesn't become a tree yet, the seed, right? Similarly, all the things required to potentially create a universe is sitting as energy inside of this Prakriti. It has just not come out yet. That is the first one. The second thing is it is in a form which is undifferentiated. So, for example, when you take this the clay, I forget the name, what the kids play with, it doesn't have a shape, but you can take the clay and the kids can make various shapes out of it. But originally the clay does not have any shape. Similarly, all of this thing, which is called as the Prakriti, which is just the material energy, has all of this in everything that is required for all kinds of creation to take place, and that is sitting as Prakriti along with this. This Purusha, who is the Brahman, who's not impacted by this at all, right? So from this Prakriti, what happens is multiple universes come. Okay, there's not just one universe or the 14 worlds that we're going to see about. There's constantly multiple universes which are springing out of this, and multiple universes which are getting absorbed because that destruction of that multiple universe is done. The destruction of that Brahma is done. So that entire universe is going to get merged. So it's a constant cycle that is actually happening. The first piece which actually gets created out of this Prakriti is something called as Mahat. And that Mahat means supreme consciousness. When we use the English word. But really what it is every single subatomic particle, the lowest particle which exists in all of this universe, has the same consciousness as the highest particle that exists. What this very simple term is, even the smallest microbe that exists in this world has some consciousness inside of it. The consciousness that exists in that microbe is the same consciousness that exists in all of us, is the same consciousness that's going to exist in all of the demigods as well. That consciousness is the same for everybody. That one consciousness is called as Mahat. So that is the supreme consciousness which first comes. So which is like a think of it, and I'm going to give you some parallel examples just to make it easy to understand, but you cannot literally take the example that way. So you think of it as there's a big ocean which is there. All the water in the ocean is the same right now, which is the supreme consciousness. So that is the first step that is coming, is the concept of Mahat, which first comes, which is the consciousness which is going to be there, common for everybody. Maya Sannihito Pravishta. So it kind of goes together because that S symbol is there. So Maya Sannihito Pravishta Vapusha, Sakshiti Gito Bhavan, Bhedaistam Prati Bimbato Bibishiban, Jivopi Naivaparaha. Maya Sannihito Pravishta Vapusha Sakshiti Gito Bhavan Bhedaistam Pratibimbato Vivishivan Jivopi Naiva Paraha.
Maya Sannihito Pravishta Sakshiti Gito Bhavan Bhedaistam Pratibimbato Vivishivan Jivopi Naiva Paraha. Maya Sannihito Pravishta Sakshiti Gito Bhavan Vedaistam Pratibimbato Vivishivan Jivopi Naiva Paraha.
Maya Sannihito Pravishta Vavusha Sakshi Digido Bhavan भेदैस्तां प्रतिबिम्बतो विविशिवान् जीवोऽपि नैवावराः माया सन्निहितो प्रविष्टवपुषा साक्षीदिगीतो भवान् भेदैस्तां प्रतिबिम्बतो विविशिवान् जीवोऽपि नैवापरः
कालादि प्रति बोधितात भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धि तत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महानुच्यते कालादिप्रतिबोधितात भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महानुच्यते
कालादिप्रतिबोधितार्थमभवता कालादिप्रतिबोधिताथ भवता संजोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत्योऽस्यौ महानुच्यते.
Yes, if you have the word in Sanskrit, if you have a dya there, essentially that is buddhi tattvam asrijat. I'm just breaking it as it, and then yosau mahanuchyate. Then it's easier.
माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् द्योऽसौ असृजत्
Yosau.
द्योऽसौ
Yeah.
माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् द्योऽसौ महानुच्यते कालादिप्रतिबोधितात्तथ भवता संजोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत्योऽसौ महानुच्यते.
And Harish, I'm just typing something in the chat. Just take a look at it, okay?
कालादिप्रतिबोधितात भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महानुच्यते कालादिप्रतिबोधितात भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महानुच्यते.
Do one more and we'll stop today. तत्रासौ त्रिगुणात्मकोऽपि च महान् सत्त्वप्रधानः स्वयं जीवेऽस्मिन् खलु निर्विकल्पमहमित्युद्बोधनिष्पादकः चक्रेऽस्मिन् सविकल्पबोधकमहं तत्त्वं भवान् कल्वसौ सम्पुष्टं त्रिगुणैस्तमोति बहुलं विष्णो भवत्प्रेरणात्. So that supreme consciousness, which we said, it's one for everyone, right? So that's the Paramatma. It's the same thing. So if you realize that state, that means you're one with Bhagavan. Now, at that point, there is some disturbance that happens to that Prakriti, right? To that Mahat. So when what that means is, you think of an ocean. Every drop of water in the ocean is the same drop of water. There's no difference between that, right? But when I take a syringe and I take one drop of water from that ocean, that drop of water begins to feel that it is actually unique from the rest of the ocean. It has a feeling, it's imagining it is unique. That layer of feeling of that individuality is called as ahankara. Ahankara doesn't mean pride. In this case, ahankara means individuality. Okay, so the first step is Mahat. The second step is this feeling of individuality. So that's why later on, when we talk about a lot of this philosophy, it really says is we are thinking that we are unique. In reality, we are not unique, right? We have the same Paramatma. We just don't realize it because we're going to see all these layers that are going to keep building on top of each other. And finally, our gross body is going to come. So by the time all of these things come, we forget the core source or the root of where we all came from, which is all the same Mahat for everybody. So the second step that is actually getting here is this feeling of individuality, which is called as a ahankaram, because of which in the future, this is all concept right now, because of this, later on, when an insect is born, or you are born as a human, or somebody takes the role of an Indra, everybody thinks they are different and they are unique because of several other things, but the core root of this is ahankaram or the individuality which is there. So that's why he's saying the second step in the process is that concept of individuality. Yeah, go ahead, Manish.
So is this at the realm of human is different from ant, insect is different from amphibian, is it at
Correct.
that realm, or Rajesh is different from
No,
Harish
it is
different
at
from
it's the first realm that you spoke about. It's in fact even deeper than that. It is even at the realm of a stone being different than you. Because like I said, one of the first principles, there are the four primary principles. The first principle is everything comes from that one Bhagavan and everything goes back into him. That's the first principle, right? The second principle is that at the end of it, everybody, this consciousness is same in everybody. But then there are different layers which are going to get added on top of each. So that's why a stone has different attributes and characteristics than you as Harish compared to somebody who's a Gandharva or a demigod, because it's the layers which are going to get added on top and added on top of these core things. But there are common things which apply to everybody. The common thing is Mahat. And then there is this feeling of individuality which is going to get added, right? So now now at that individuality level, you feel different from me as a human. But it's our skin tone is different, your body is different, everything is different, right? All of that is going to come later, right? So it's just a concept of individuality right now, which makes everything in this world different from each other at the root. If you start shedding all these layers and finally you come to the point of saying, I am actually not unique, the same consciousness exists in me as everybody else, you come to the realization. You're in the state of enlightenment that people talk about, is really realizing that, right? So, but you have to go through several layers to finally come to that layer. Now we are going in the reverse order. We're going in the process of creation. Later on, we'll see how we have to come in the reverse order. So that's why I'm saying you have to wait till all these things come, and then you will start connecting the dots of how things are different. Tatrasau Trigunaatmakopi cha mahan, sattva pradhanaha. If you have it, put the is to join. Sattva pradhanas swayam, jivesmin khalu, nirvikalpa mahamit. Again, I'm breaking that it and you there. Nirvikalpa mahamit yudbodha nishpadakaha. Tatrasau trigunaatmakopi cha mahan sattva pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpa mahamit yudbodha nishpadakaha.
Tatrasau trigunaatmakopi cha mahan sattva-pradhanah swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpa mahitat yudbodha nishpadakaha.
So on the second line, there's a comma after kalu, okay, and then the next word nirvikalpa mahamit.
Jivesmin khalu nirvikalpa mahamit yudbodha nishpadakaha. Tatrasau trigunaatmakopi cha mahan sattva-pradhanah swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpa mahamid yudbodha nishpadakaha.
Tatrasau Trigunaatmakopi cha mahan sattva-pradhanah swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpamahi ahamit द्युद्बोधनिष्पातकः तत्रासौ त्रिगुणात्मको महान् सत्त्वप्रधानः स्वयं जीवोऽस्मिन् खलु निर्विकल्पमहमिद्युद्बोधनिष्पातकः.
Indraji, the second line you said Jivosmin. It is Jivesmin. Yeah.
Sorry, Jivesmin.
Chakresmin Savikalpa Bodhaka Mahan Tattvam. Actually, this one I have to just check something. Give me 1 second. I think my script current one says something different. Yeah. Chakresmin Savikalpaka Bodhaka Mahan Tattvam Mahan Kalvaso. Some books may have Bhavan. So if you have Bhavan, change it to Mahan. Mahan Kalvaso, comma. So comma at the end of that line. Sampushtam Trigunais Tamoti Bahulam, comma. Vishnu Bhavat Preranat. Chakresmin.
Is it Kalpaka?
Which one?
In the first line, is there Kalpaka Bhodaka or Kalpa Bhodaka?
Kalpa Savikalpa Bodhaka. It's a Vikalpa Bodhaka. Chakresmin Savikalpa Bodhaka Mahan Tattvam Mahan Khalvasau Sampushtam Trigunaistamoti Bahulam Vishnu Bhavat Preranat.
Chakresmin Savikalpa Bodhaka Mahan Tattvam Mahan Khalvasau Sampushtam Trigunaistamoti Bahulam Vishnu Bhavat Preranat. Chakraismin Savikalpa Bodhaka Mahan Tattvam Mahan Khalvasau Sampushtam Trigunaistamoti Bahulam Vishnu Bhavat Preranat.
Me, Rajesh, and the third line, Mahat Tattvam or Mahan Tattvam.
The word is Mahat. Okay, but that takes a in sound there when it's coming with Tattvam.
Mahat.
So it's a Mahan Tattvam.
Okay, Mahan.
Mahan Tattvam, but the actual word is Mahat and Tattvam individually, but the join becomes a in.
Chakresmin Savikalpabodhakam aham tattvam mahan khalyaso sambushtam trigunaistamodi bahulam Vishnu bhavat preranat. Chakresmin Savikalpabodhakam aham tattvam mahan khalyaso Sambushtam Trigunaistamoti Behulam Vishnu Bhavat Preranat.
So Indraji, here you cannot break that as Bodhakam Ahan, because if the word is Mahat Tattvam, right? So it is Vikalpa Bodhaka Mahan Tattvam. Okay.
My book says Aham Tattvam.
No, that's wrong, because it's Mahat Tattvam. So that word, the previous line, like you broke that Im and Aham, that is correct, because it says Aham, which is the individuality is coming in. But in this case, it's Mahat. So it's not that okay. So just make sure you correct that. Yeah. We'll end it here today. Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam Kaladeshavadibhyam Nirmuktam Nityamuktam Nigamashatasahasrena Nirbhasyamanam Aspashtam Drishtamatre Punarurupurusharthatmakam Brahmatattvam Tattavadbhati Sakshat Guru Pavanapure Hanta Bhagyam Jananam Kahena vacha manasendriyerva buddhyatmana va prakrite swabhavat karotmi yat karoti yastyat sakalam parasmai narayanahi samarpayami. Thank you, everybody. See you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Rashka.
you.